Hey there guys, what's going on? Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another P5X video, and today we are taking a look at Pridwin's tier list for global. Of course, there is also a CN tier list as well, but I'm not going to be focusing on that because it'll feature characters that we don't have as of yet. If you want me to make a video on that, feel free to let me know. We can take a look at all the characters that are going to be super important for us to get in the future, but I feel like that can be a separate video of its own. But let me know if you guys would like to see it. Today it's all about the global tier list and seeing what units we need to be getting at the start of the game, and what units, and especially the 4-star side of things, that we need to dupe up. Now of course, if you guys are going to enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of good stuff, and let's take a look at Pridwin's tier list. Now, first things first is that this is a very subjective thing. Tier listing is always very subjective, so obviously give kudos to Pridwin for making this tier list in the first place. Big shout outs to them, of course, but keep in mind that when the game launches, there may be some slight changes potentially as well that we need to take into consideration. When the game drops, maybe there's something different between, you know, the CN version of the game and the global version of the game. We'll have to wait and see, but generally speaking, if everything is the same, people will still rate certain characters quite differently. I've already been seeing some people rating, for example, Mona higher than Lofel and vice versa. So again, keep in mind that this is going to be a very subjective thing, but at the end of the way, they need to be, you know, used as a tool to give you a bit of guidance, and that's it. You know, is the decision comes down to you whether or not you want to go down that route, or if you feel more comfortable going another way. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's take a look at the tier list. Of course, they've got some disclaimers as well, just like I just disclaimed there that, you know, this is a subjective thing. They've got a subjective thing as well. Tier lists are inherently a problematic way to convey information and should be used carefully. Here's some limitations we have identified. Character tier lists do not convey synergy well. In Persona 5 Phantom X, certain characters pair and synergize better than with others, which puts their power level above the average. A tier list organized at the individual character level will inevitably run into presentation issues inherent to depicting an individual character's value within a team with other contexts of the team. Readers are encouraged to exercise their due diligence when using the tier lists. I absolutely agree with that. It's like in any other gacha game or in any other game, period, in any other RPG, you always want to make sure that your teams synergize well. You know, you have potentially a dedicated healer or a support that can actually support your main DPSs, and vice versa. Your DPSs can rely on the support to be able to extract their maximum performance and not just go in and, you know, hope and pray that they can still deal the same amount of damage without their supports. You know what I mean, right? So keep that in mind. Information gets lost in aggregation. Representing a character's power level as an aggregate of their performance across different game modes introduces some level of ambiguity. The subjective nature of such assessments will inevitably cause a gap between a character's rating and their actual in-game performance. So what they're saying is, of course, they're trying to combine a lot of game modes together, right? They're trying to combine a lot of game modes together, whereas some characters may be good in one game mode and then another character is good in another game mode, right? And or one character is good in one game mode, but they may be ass in another game mode. So just keep that in mind. Tier lists are not an end-all reference. They're intended to be used as an aid to quickly compare characters, especially for new players trying to scope out the game's roster. Players are heavily encouraged to supplement the tier list with our reviews and the various resources available through the game's many online communities. Absolutely right on that. This is something that you need to use as an aid, a tool, like I said at the very beginning of this video, to help you figure out where to go. Outside of that, you need to do your research and due diligence accordingly. You look at, you know, guides that Pridwin has in regards to the characters themselves. You look at guides that other creators have. I myself will be making guides as well, so keep that in mind. Due to Wonder being always present as a fixed party member and due to his versatility, he is not included in the tier list. No matter the situation or context, he would be always amongst the best supports. So yeah, I think that's going to be the way we're going to probably have to use Wonder. We're not going to use him as our main DPS unit, but we're probably going to use him as a unit where he can support the rest of the team, depending on the persona he has equipped, be it with something with, you know, one of the Kajas or, you know, moves like that which help in increasing the allies' attack or decreasing the enemy's defense, stuff like that, Maru Kaja or something along those lines, for example, just using a random move off the top of my head as an example. Coverage. The general tier list rate the character performance in the following content: story, event, bosses, Velvet Trials, Astrolabe Trials, and all other trivial content, whereas bossing focuses on Trials from the Sea of Souls and Nightmare's Gateway, the guild event. Alright, so that makes sense. So the categories are DPS, so your single target and AoE target DPS units will be there. Sustain, so your healers and stuff like that. Support, I assume this is going to be your units that are basically your support buffers or debuff support, of course. Navigator, backline supports who can provide buffs and debuffs at any point during any on-field character's turn. The criteria includes manual play using optimal team composition, characters upgraded to skill level 80, skills upgraded to level 10. CN bossing includes up to awareness level 6 for standard 5-star characters, which is completely fine, and up to level 1 awareness for limited characters. I find that a bit weird that they're including, dupe levels in, the CN level side of things, but I think they're kind of assuming that you've got a lot of these units duped up and ready to go, which I can kind of see, especially quite later on. But I feel like, generally speaking, personally, the way I would have done it is 5 stars I would have done at no dupes, and 4 stars I would have done on max dupes, in my opinion. Global bossing includes up to awareness level 1 for standard 5-star characters and awareness level 0 for limited characters. So bossing is the challenging content. They're basically duping up the 5 stars for the CN side and only duping up to 1 level for the global side. Awareness level 6 for 4-star characters, completely fine. Limited characters are equipped with level 80 4-star weapons, 5-star weapons for CN bossing. Standard characters are equipped with level 85-star weapon. Phantom Pass and Cognition Shop can provide ways for players to obtain 5-star weapons for standard characters, which is completely fine. I think the way, if you guys haven't checked out my beginner's guide video, go check it out. But it does seem like it's going to be very easy to get weapons, so I'm not too worried about that. And then characters are equipped with 4-star upgraded revelation cards with optimal main stats and substats. Alright, so pretty straightforward in that sense. Very, very straightforward in that sense. So we've got the ratings here. Tier 0 is the highest tier. It's the best in their respective roles. 0.5 is basically the tier below, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, so on and so forth. It's very standard. It's very, very standard as to what they are and what they explain. So let's take a look at the general global tier list first and foremost. So this is what we're going to be going into, of course, when we get into the game for the very first time. This is what we're going to be seeing. So Ren Amamiya is at tier 0 in the DPS section, with Seiji Shiratori at a 6. Now, Seiji Shiratori, if I'm not mistaken, that's Fleuret, right? If I'm not mistaken, yeah. So he is going to be one of the characters that we'll actually probably get for free at the very start of the game, if I'm not mistaken. And so what that means is that we're probably going to be able to get more copies of him as a result from the standard banners and stuff like that. And we're going to have at least a base copy of him from the very get-go, which at A0 itself is going to be super nice. It'll mean that building up his dupes will be super easy. We have Lufel at tier 0 as well. Of course, this is something that I mentioned earlier on as an example, where Lufel and Morgana, I said Mona, but Morgana's name, I say Mona because of the nicknames. I'm playing through P5 right now, right? So Lufel and Morgana are quite interchangeable according to various sources. So I think that's fair, but I think, of course, for me, it's a case of I need to see them in game. I need to see their kits and stuff before I speak about them. Like I said, over the next few days, we're going to be going over a lot of guides and builds and stuff like that. I'm going to be doing all the 5 stars first and foremost. So you'll see me doing Joker, you'll see me doing Yaoling Li, Panther, Morgana, Ryuji, Haruna. We'll go through those 6 first and foremost over the next 2-3 days, and then we'll go over the 4 stars, and I'll go in terms of the tier list, of course. So keep that in mind. Support-wise, we have Yaoling Li as tier 0 support, and that means if she is, I'm pretty sure she is another one of those standard 5-star characters alongside Panther, Morgana, and Ryuji. So I would recommend definitely maybe consider getting her. Of course, remember, if you guys don't remember this, we'll take a look at the guides 1 second. So we'll take a look at the beginner's guide 1 minute, go over to the gacha system. Keep in mind that when you do your beginner banner, you are guaranteed to get Ryuji, Morgana, or An. Ideally, if you're planning on going for Joker, maybe you want to pick up An as the option there, it seems like. And then, of course, in terms of the sustain option, Lufel's already there. So, obviously, the way I would personally do it, right, in my opinion, the way I would go about potentially the beginner's banner, right, is that try and get yourself Yaoling Li in the beginner banner itself, if possible, and then go and get An. Now, keep in mind, you can see already, like, some of their tierings, what they are currently on CN a year later, and Yaoling Li seems to get a big drop off at tier 4, whereas on tier 1 Ryuji goes back up to tier 1 in bossing, which is pretty cool. We'll see what it is on global side, of course. Seems like it's 0.5 on global. And then Morgana's gone down drastically. Lufel still maintains a little bit, but not too much as well there. So maybe the best pickup probably for a lot of people off rip is probably going to be on or Ryuji in the beginner's banner, but maybe getting Yaoling Li at least as an initial support might be a good idea as well, generally speaking. But yeah, then you have navigator side. Miyu Sahara is our best navigator, basically, of course, on the tier 0 side, and that's your tier 0. Like I said, we're going to be going into a game that's pretty empty, so a lot of this is early, right? You don't have to worry too much about what you're picking up right now, purely because it's going to change. It's going to change drastically, as we see with Yaoling Li from global to CN, so keep that in mind. In tier 0.5, you have An, Morgana, Leo, and Kaio for DPS, sustain, support, navigator, respectively, as you can see. Now, to be honest, I think, like I said, I think on the DPS side of things, I think a lot of people are going to be picking up Joker, so you can also go for An and maybe go. Obviously, we'll have Wonder as a support unit, of course, right? But then Joker on and maybe having like a sustain like Lufel or Morgana might be a good idea for you to kickstart things off with, potentially, right? And then as a navigator, you can have either Miyu or Kaio. Now, we'll have to check out what Joker's banner is going to look like in terms of the 4 stars. I'm kind of hoping that we end up with like Miyu, Lufel, and Seiji as like our options. That would be amazing, but we're going to have to wait and see, of course, right? That'll be something we're going to have to wait and see. Then tier 1, we have Ryuji Sakamoto, Shun Kano, Haruna Nishimori, and beyond that, its tier 2s are your Kotoe Montaigne, Moto Arai. Really? No, I was kind of really hoping we could use her, to be honest. I was really hoping we could use her. Yukimi Fujikawa, Tomoke Noge, and then Toshiya Sumi and Kiyoshi Kurotane are your tier 2 and tier 3 characters. I think, personally, to me, you're probably going to want to ignore these ones, right? At the end of the day, if they're this low right now, yeah, you can tell like how they look like on CN. They're all tier 5. You kind of want to just ignore them. Our main focus will be between tier 0 and tier 1 for the start of the game. And like I said, what this tells me, right, is that if you're planning on jumping into the start of the game, right, you're planning on opening the game up and you're planning on re-rolling or something like that, I would personally go for it, potentially the likes of getting more Lufel copies if possible from the beginner's banner, picking up Miyu Sahara, and then of course going for Joker from there on. Of course, this is assuming you are planning on, you know, actually picking up Joker. If you're not planning on picking up Joker, then you might want to pick up An, you want to pick up Lufel, and you want to pick up Yaoling Li. But of course, along with that, you might want to consider maybe going for another option, potentially is a DPS option, because of course, remember that with the end game contents, you're going to need 2 teams. So maybe going for 2 DPSs off rip is a very good decision, to be quite honest. It's a very good decision because at least it'll allow you to go from there and work with what you've got and build up 2 teams accordingly, right? So keep that in mind. For me personally, the way I would look at this, right, and the way I would approach this, when I start the game, right, and you know, come summon time, what my plans are, what are my 2 teams going to look like, at least at the very beginning, depending on what's on Joker's banner as the rate of 4 stars, if there are any rate of 4 stars. I would want Joker on Seiji, Lufel, Morgana, if possible, maybe Yaoling Li and Leo Kamiyama, sorry, and then Miyu Sahara and Kaio Toriyama. You've got 8 characters there, I think I counted, 8 characters. You're only going to be able to use basically 6 characters. Well, you'll need to use 8 characters, actually. I'm correcting myself there because I keep forgetting the navigator takes up slot as well. So let's ignore the navigators. You're going to need both navigators. Off rip, you're going to need both navigators. So it's kind of imperative, actually. A lot of people try and pick up both of them off rip just so that they have it, and then maybe down the line try and get more navigators from this when we start getting them. Actually, it's going to be vital people pick up a navigator at some point for sure. But for now, at least on the DPS, sustain, and support side, you need one of each, basically. So you want to pick up Joker, Lufel, Yaoling Li, An, Morgana, Leo Kamiyama. That's probably going to be your team off rip, right? And then Wonder is going to be there, of course, as an option as well, where you can play around with him and stuff. So just keep that in mind when you're going in. This looks like a fairly straightforward tier list, of course, coming into the game. Now let's take a look at the bossing side of things, because the bossing side of things see a few changes. So Shun Kano goes from tier 1 to tier 0 for bossing side of things, which is impressive, to be honest. Leo Kamiyama goes up to tier 0, and Kaio goes from tier 0.5 to tier 0, whereas Miyu goes from tier 0 to 0.5. Now Morgana gets a big drop off here. So that's a pretty impressive thing. Now, Shun Kano is a vanguard unit or a defensive unit, a guardian unit is what they're calling it, of course, right? So that's pretty interesting that a guardian unit is going to be our best sustain option in this. Whereas, of course, Lufel's a proper medic, basically, a straightforward medic. Ryuji also gets a bit of a boost going from tier 1 to tier 0.5, whereas Seiji goes down from tier 0 to tier 0 to tier 1. Fair enough. Now, this is going to be very interesting to see how it pans out, because I do think Leo Kamiyama might be a good option to have, generally speaking, right? I think it'll be a very good option to have her off-rip or him off-rip. 50-50, no idea. Don't know which one is which. Looks like her to me. We'll see. Where's the tier list gone? I lost the tier list. There we go. We're back to the tier list. I was like, press the back button. There's nothing happening. So it's going to be very interesting, because bossing and global general content is quite a bit different. Now, keep in mind, when they do bossing tier list, they have Trials from the Sea of Souls, which requires 2 teams. But so do the Velvet Trials, if I'm not mistaken. The Velvet Trials also require 2 teams. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what the banners are going to look like when the game drops, because that's, I think, going to be the critical point as to what 4 stars are going to be on the banner. Ideally, I think it would be better if Shun Kano and Leo Kamiyama and Kaio, Kaio and Miu being on the banner would be amazing, but I think having Leo Kamiyama and Shun Kano in the banner would be ideal. I think having the navigators is also very important, but I think that'll be something. We'll get one guaranteed one, I think, off rip. I hope so, at least, because it'd be a big shocker to me if we don't get a navigator guaranteed to have. You know, you're going into a fight without a navigator would be very surprising to me, to be quite honest. So I think getting Shun Kano and Leo Kamiyama as raid ups would be ideal, personally, to me, honestly, because at least you're going to use them for the bossing side of things. That's going to be super important. Lufel and Yaoling Li will be the other units you're probably going to want to pick up, of course, as well, because then obviously you're guaranteed you're going to pick her up from the, you know, 50-50 banner. I think everybody's going to probably pick up Panther from the 50-50 banner, the beginner's banner. And then Joker is obviously going to be a pickup that everybody's going to want to get. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting. Yeah, I think that's going to be the way we go. So keep in mind that, well, they said that they're going to be using A1 for the bossing side of things for global, but they haven't here, which is a bit surprising to me. What is this one's A1 anyways? Increases all allies attack by 17% when you're in concentration. Oh, wow. Okay, that's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty darn good. Giving a support buff to everybody would be very nice, in all honesty. It would be very nice. So yeah, let's take a look and see how everything pans out come this launch of the game. I'm quite curious to see how everything goes. I am surprised that Morgana is rated so low. Well, I say so low. Tier 2 is still okay. Not the greatest, but okay. But I'm surprised Morgana is rated that low when everybody is seemingly gassing them up in other social media platforms. Super surprising to me. But yeah, I'm quite curious to see how things pan out. This is, of course, the tier list for the start of the game. What do I think about it? Not much at the moment, to be quite honest, because I don't know how they perform in game compared to, you know, because I haven't actually played the game, unlike a lot of other creators who have access to the game right now. But I'm very excited to check them out nonetheless and see how they actually pan out. Like I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and do a build video if possible when I have a look at all of these and I see what sort of like revelation cards and stuff we have. I'm gonna get a better idea, of course, an early build guide, and then maybe once I get the units, we'll take a look and see what we can actually do here. But I'm very excited to play the game nonetheless, of course, right? I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing what is in store for us. Of course, keep in mind that, you know, when the game launches, it's going to be a Thursday, which I think is my first day of work. So we might stream when I come back from work, the first a couple of hours of the game. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Of course, if you guys enjoyed it and got some information out of it, leave a like. Of course, the link to the tier list will be in the description down below. And then, of course, if you guys want me to do the CN side of things, which of course features way more 5 stars and also features units that are, you know, A1 and above, let me know in the comment section down below. Again, like I said, I feel like this is a bit unfair to do the CN side because it's got like A1 characters and stuff like that in this tier listing. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys want me to do it, I will. Otherwise, we can see and do something else instead. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.